watching Morning at NTV.
This is Morning at NTV, and my name is Romeo Busuk, and of course I'm doing this with Malaki Villa. Our next conversation, we're going to be talking about youth participation in politics, not only the youth. When we talk about the youth, what comes into your mind? Only the boys? No. We're talking about the boys and girls. As the nation gets ready for the 2021 elections, Moses Byamugisha has joined the fray of possible presidential candidates. The presidential hopeful, who proudly boasts of over 18 years of experience. That is amazing. In politics, it's all but certain that Uganda's youth will deliver him the poll. Well, joining us for today's Kickstarter is Moses Byamugisha. He's right here in studio. Very good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning.
Good morning, my sister.
You're welcome.
Championing a youth-led change is your election campaign. This is quite vague. How do you want to get this achieved?
First of all, as viewers have heard, my name is Moses Byamugisha. I come from Rukunjiri. I'm a lawyer. I'm married to one wife with two daughters so far. 18 years ago, I joined a political effort that was intended to sanitize our politics, introduce democracy, and dismantle regime machinery that perpetuates corruption and impunity. Over the years, we have come to understand that our struggle can only be non-violence because of the history of violence of this country. We felt that as young people, we can contribute to the efforts of non-violence. And the non-violence struggle, when you borrow the leaf from South Africa, ANC, it took them over 50 years to capture power. And for us who are just 18 years down the road, it means that we have got to prepare our way and be ready for, because it requires patience and it requires leadership. So my decision to come up was really because I strongly believe that I can provide a contribution in this non-violence effort.
But you're still a member of the Forum for Democratic Change Party,
Yes,
which actually doesn't conform to your way of doing things, which is, you're saying you want to use dialogue, but the FDC is using the message of defiance to unseat President Museveni. Don't you think you'll find yourself at loggerheads with the party that you're working for?
The nature of the political problem we are trying to solve is very unique and keeps changing, because even the political players that we are facing themselves keep changing. So the kind of effort we are involved in changing this country is not a straight line. There's going to require us to keep changing also our means. Remember that we are not just dealing with the political party NRM, but we're also dealing with its entire state machinery. So there is need, like we know, we normally say, you can't put all the eggs in one basket. There is need to use a prolonged approach to this problem.
Let me ask you a question, and it's good that you've told us that you're still a member of the FDC party. Then how come you went against the party's plans? Of course, the conversation about, supporting one candidate as an opposition wing is still ongoing. And you go ahead and announced that I'm gonna vie for presidency come 2021. We had a conversation with, of course, the party leadership, and they say they actually distanced themselves from that particular announcement. So where did that come from? You saying that, hey, I'm going to stand as a person. Well, in your defense, I was listening to you during one of your, press conferences, and you're saying that it's because the party delayed to front its flag bearer for 2021. Therefore, because of that, delay, you chose to announce yourself as a presidential aspirant or hopeful. Do you think, and are you not worried that that will create friction between you and the people you hope to back you to actually garner support for 2021, your party members?
Like you indicated, first of all, we are still waiting for the FDC to announce a roadmap to choose a flag bearer. You see, but what I want our viewers to understand, issues to do with flag bearer, choosing a flag bearer and all the entire process would have made meaning if we were doing it for purposes of having one person that the party is going to front, so that all of us go around him. He garners the biggest number of votes, and he's declared winner. Today, I do strongly think that the question of numbers of votes is no longer an issue. Because in 2006 we had the biggest number of votes. In 2011 we had the biggest number of votes. So the question we are trying to deal with is the question where we are trying to educate the population, to raise the conscience of the population, for them to be able to have the necessary information and the power to engage the regime in other means beyond elections.
So,
because elections in themselves
Right.
have not been solving.
So, Mr. Byamugisha, let me ask you this. If tomorrow or at any given date, FDC comes out and says that we are supporting person X and he's going to be, he or she is going to be our flag bearer for the 2021 general elections, then what happens to you? Are you going to run as an independent?
Well, like I was saying, in the first place, the question really is not about the flag bearership. Even the party understands, because you know, at the strategic thinking level of the FDC, it's very, very clear that the question of number of votes is not the issue. What we need today is to have as very many soldiers in the field that are trying to raise the conscience of Ugandans around the problem we have. Of course, eventually, the FDC party will have a flag bearer. And I hope that I will be able to go there and participate and compete for that flag. By the way, even my decision to come and begin to go around the country to engage Ugandans is because of the desire to introduce myself as a brand to the population, because this is not something that I can easily achieve within the party.
So what happens if FDC says we are not supporting you for the 2021 general elections as a FDC flag bearer? Are you going to run as an independent? Will you back down on your presidential ambitions?
You see, the struggle that I have been involved in within the party, the reason why I have been in the party was because of some principles, because of some values. Now, FDC political party, the party that I love most, is not necessarily the custodian of this political effort. There are very many players beyond the FDC party that are doing their very good work, including the UPC, in People Power, in the Democratic Party, including independents, including just individuals.
Just a yes
it does
or
no
no
harm.
Yes.
It does no harm if there is a Mr. X or Madam Y whom FDC has fronted to champion the FDC effort. And there are also very many Ugandans, and I can be part of those Ugandans that are doing that good work.
Please answer in simple English. If FDC fronts someone else as its flag bearer for 2021, are you going to back down on your ambitions to be president of Uganda come 2021? That's one. And does it mean that you're going to run as an independent?
Good. Right now on Wednesday, I'm heading to Kabale for consultations.
Correct.
I do not know what is going to come out of these consultations because when I announced, I know people are waiting for me. I have got 10 consultative meetings around the country in the coming weeks. After these consultative meetings, I will have gauged the situation and I will determine what to do.
All right.
Let's harmonize the conversation. I think what Malaki Villa was saying is a simple fact. You have in FDC the president, Patrick Amoria Tobo. You have the FDC strongman, Mr. Kiza Besigye, and you have you, Moses Byamugisha. So if they wake up and say, no, we are not even going to go for Moses Byamugisha, we won't go for the president of FDC, but we shall go for that formidable force that we think is able to trounce Museveni, Kiza Besigye, in that regard. Won't that create chaos at the FDC? That was a question. That is one. Number two, you're also championing a youth-led campaign when it comes to the 2020 electoral campaigns. You're championing a youth-led initiative. How do you plan to go about that?
On the first question.
On the first question and the second.
On whether there won't be a possibility of confusion when the party selects another flag bearer. I think the good name that I have in the FDC has largely been because I've been an activist. I will remain an activist in a form that permits me to continue to champion the ideals that I stand for. Then there was that second question.
Yeah, you're championing, your campaign is focusing on the youth.
We talk about championing an inclusive youth-led change because after all these years, we realize that as young people, we face the same problems. Young people in NRM, young people in the opposition, and young people even in the private sector. Right now, February, we shall be taking kids to school, and we struggle the same way to meet the basic needs of life as young people across board. And so we are saying, maybe if our if our fathers, if our grandfathers are divided because of the history they went through, and you can see they even reach an extent of publishing books of like Betrayed by My Reader, meaning that they have got factors that divide them at even at personal level. So if our founding fathers have got that history that divides them, but here we are as young people that have got a desired future that binds us, and so can we identify areas of unanimity and have some kind of minimum agenda as young people that we can champion, that we can promote, notwithstanding the political parties that we want to. So that's what I mean by inclusive, youth-led, and we say
inclusive and youth-led. So
Yes,
that would
it
bring
has
us
to be
to our conversation, which is the youth now. How do you explain the low representation of young people in our parliaments in Uganda and governments around the world?
Incidentally, you'll be surprised that our parliament, notwithstanding the fact that there is a limited youth voice that comes through, but it is largely dominated by youth. That parliament, 45 years and below, they are the majority. But because of the nature of the politics, where the regime has structured our politics that even the institution of parliament is so weakened, the voice of the young people does not come through. Even when we look at the youth councils, in 2011, I was a candidate for youth member of parliament for FDC in Western Uganda. And over 90% of the youth councils were from the National Resistance Movement. But we were so weak even at the delegates conference because the manner in which those youth representatives are selected, right from the grassroots, is largely through patronage, is largely through, so at the end of the day, you have a huge pool of disempowered young people.
Correct. Now that you're talking about disempowerment, let's look about the unemployment rate in the country. According to you, boss, every single year, Uganda churns out 400,000 graduates. Out of that, only 90 are assimilated in the job market, formal employment. 310 are left to find their ground, which is very harsh. We all know that. So what will be your proposition? What are you telling the Ugandan youth who's watching you this morning, unemployed, has amazing grades, a perfect university degree, has tarmacked for many years without getting an employment? When you're elected president come 2021, what is it that you're going to change for the 310,000 Ugandans who are left in limbo without having a future and a hope, in spite of them having amazing grades?
First of all, let government. We have got to cross the leakages within the usage of public resources. You see, if government is putting resources on its good use, if money that we collect as taxes are being put to proper government programs, the government programs themselves can absorb a huge pool of young unemployed people. In addition to other good ideas that have been suggested before, because as Uganda, what we are not short of is not ideas. We have got ideas in policy. I had the pleasure to work on the office of the Leader of Opposition in the year 2013 to 2016 as a technical officer. We put across through our members of parliament all of these ideas. But on top of all of those that we have talked about, I'm looking at a number of like two things, or three or two. One, let's encourage entrepreneurship, deliberate efforts to encourage entrepreneurship, not just talking about. Let's reassess the value of unpaid internships. There are very many young people that are doing internships out there in various government offices, in various corporations, which internships are not paid. They're not even given lunch. It's a mess. Let's look at early career guidance of our children. Let's look at promotion of sports, culture, and arts. Because you see, when you look at countries like Brazil, when you look even at Kenya, many young people that are sustaining families through just sports. So you can imagine what would happen if we had 5 sports academies in the 5 regions of Uganda, well-resourced, well-entrenched resource academies that are training our young people in various disciplines of sports and arts and everything. Let's look at establishing and supporting business incubation programs. Deliberate, you see, at the moment we are the mercy of the private sector. But the private sector, for example, cannot fund research. It has to be a government effort. to do all of this. Let's develop and nurture partnerships between high capacity incubators and these training institutions. You know, the private sector, if you look at this company that makes ARVs, you can imagine that it is involved in a lot of incubation of ideas, a lot of research. Let there be a government effort, not just a goodwill of the company, to partner it with educational institutions like UCU, like Makerere.
Mr. Byamugisha, all these things you've articulated, Mr. Bobby Wine has. And he has quite a huge support base from the young people. And that's why I think the president, we've been having all these conversations here, and you know this, the president now is, you know, trying to see how can I also gain support for the youth. And that's why we're seeing him really being articulate and very strategic with the ghetto youth. So all these other things you're saying, all these things you're saying, Bobby Wine has. And he has quite a huge support base. Right here, we're live on Facebook. We're having one of our viewers, many thanks, Musana Martin, saying, I'm Team Bobby Wine. Quite a number are saying Team Bobby Wine. Then why not support Mr. Bobby Wine so you can help him attain this dream? If Uganda is not about you, then why not support someone who is already more popular, shares the same manifesto to achieve a better Uganda for the young Ugandan?
Two things. First of all, beyond these ideas, at the end of the day, Ugandans are going to go on a track record of every individual.
True.
My growth, my participation and growth in politics over the last 18 years has been organic. One can trace me in 2001, trace where I was in 2006, trace where I was in 2011, and can imagine where I will be in 2026 and 2030. So beyond these ideas, people are going to eventually narrow down, but what kind of person this one is. Secondly, if my brother Honorable Chaguranyi is already doing very good work, that's very okay. And let me also do this good work. What does it cost Ugandans to have a large pool of young people that are flooding this country with developmental ideas? I think that's what we lack. People who are patriotic, who love this country. So let's all go to Ugandans. Let's tell Ugandans. And you see, this whole question of why don't you go behind this? Why don't you support him to do what? You see, people who have got the experience and exposure like myself know that beyond this fun, beyond this excitement, there are real issues. The real issue is that the person who counts the votes, the person who announces, has no relationship with the person who casts the vote.
So you would actually advocate for the
and so that
for
that
an
relates,
environment
and
where
so
we
that
have
relates.
so many young people
And that,
participating in politics.
Yes, many young people participating in politics.
But let's talk about
it is a platform, and
so
and that issue of joint candidature, if you will allow me.
You go ahead.
The problem we have in this country now is not the lack of a single candidate of the opposition. For all the last 3 times that I have followed and participated directly, we have always had many presidential candidates. But do you realize that for every election, Ugandans have only voted for 2 people? So the conversation about joint candidature, it is for here Kampala people, the elites. Our people up country, they already choose their joint candidate.
So let's talk about the reason why so many youth are not participating in politics. The financial limitations.
The question of money.
Yes.
And as you see, there is a recent report that says average to secure a parliamentary seat now you need 500 millions. When I read it, I was like, so what about us who intend to secure a presidential seat?
And what about,
I could not imagine.
about the 75% of the youth who are unemployed?
Now, we are talking about young people who are in institutions or who have just left institutions and have been ushered into a pool of unemployment. They do not have the money. They can't access credit because they do not have collateral. And but they have got the ideas, like myself. I was being asked, how do you intend to run around this country, which is so big? I am only lucky that I've been doing this work regarding this particular assignment for the last 7 years.
So in your opinion, Mr. Byamugisha, what can parliaments, governments, and the civil society do to increase young men and women's participation?
Let's reduce nomination fees. Why put? You see, I was in Parliament on the day they were putting those fees, and I could see there was no voice of reason. It was every MP who was deciding was looking at that Moses who intends to contest, and they were all saying, "Can you imagine this girl has just left campus and she also wants to stand against me?" They were being sentimental. So let's calm down. Let's reduce nomination fees. That's the first thing. Let's even consider having biased biased guidelines that are intended to bring young people on board. You see, for every young person that comes on board, he gives a fresh, a renewed hope. My candidature right now, there are very many young people who are saying, Moses, we were part of a large pool of young people that are affected by voter apathy. But by your coming up, it has given us a reason to think that maybe we have got a future in this country as young people. So I think let's encourage young people to participate in politics, because by participating in politics, it's a platform. You see, you cannot have a lamp and cover it with a basket. That lamp will not be recognized. Let's encourage young people to come up. Let's use politics as a platform of where young people come up and give ideas. Support the civil society. So that why every day there is a shrinking space of the civil society.
Right.
So if we're talking about the challenges affecting the youth, we cannot leave the incumbent alone. So where has the incumbent, President Yoweri Museveni, gone wrong when it comes to addressing youth challenges?
You see, we think, as young people in this country, we do not think that Mr. Museveni is being honest on the issues that affect us as young people. On one hand, he announces a livelihood fund, and he says this is for young people, this is for women. And on the other hand, through his technocrats, he said for them to access it, they must have Korato. But here is a Byamugisha Moses, first of all. Even the property that we had as a family was spent in paying school fees. There is no property at home. We no longer inherit property like our elders used to do. So I do not have Korato security. So I cannot access this credit. We would like to see, we would like to see the incumbent being honest in addressing these issues, deliberate efforts beyond, when you get money and you say you are putting it in a sack of ghetto, with no proper follow-up. When Museveni came to Rukunji in the by-elections of the woman MP, he spent over 500 billions. In my sub-county alone, in the circle in my sub-county, they put there 30 million in a local circle. So recently, during Christmas, I was asking the people who manage that circle, and they said, has State House ever called back on you people to find out how you're using the 30 million? They said, no, they've never called back on us. No. So what is the idea of putting money without follow-up?
Well, Mr. Byamugisha, we are talking about this issue, but then the government has also done something. The National Youth Council Act of 1993, yes, the National Youth Policy, all these have been instituted to help youth representation. We have quotas at parliament level. They've done something, but then let's look at you as Mr. Moses Byamugisha. If you were to win the 2021 election, what would you do different? They've tried.
Wow. And actually, you think the problem is the lack of options of what we would do different? Everything is already on course. By the way, what we lack in this country today is not ideas to transform this country. I think actually what we require in this country today is dialogue. That on one side of the coin, you've got a population that is tired of the arrangement of the status quo. And on one side of the other coin, you've got a system, a regime that on a daily basis concentrates on entrenching itself in power. And so you can imagine the kind of collision that can happen. So for me, what we need, first of all, is dialogue. So that you've got a system of governance that has restored dignity of young people.
I'm grappling to understand how dialogue will help increase youth participation.
Oh, no. You see, youth participation is just an element. I'm talking about the real problem that has even hindered, you see, the nature of politics, you have talked about youth councils. Do we ask ourselves why today we cannot get the products from youth councils like used to get during the Rugunda days? Why amongst the current young people, who is the next Rugunda?
All right. Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about campaign financing as you wrap this up. It's been a conversation, especially now that the president is very articulate on fighting corruption. And you know where the cycle begins during the election period. Where are you getting your financing from? I was looking at your chart with regards to your consultation program. You're beginning this Wednesday, the 22nd of January, and you're going to be in Kabale. On the 29th, you'll be in Iganga. 5th of February, Kapchorwa. 12th of February, Tororo. 19th of February, you're going to be going to Gulu. 26th of February, Kabalore. We're also having Bale, that will be the 4th of March. 11th of March, you're going to be in Lira. Kotigo, that will be in 18th of March. 25th of March, Masindi, that will crown it for you. This costs quite a number of coins here and there.
Yes.
And being a presidential aspirant for 2021, that means that's another financial burden on you. Where are you getting your money from?
It was 7 years ago when I got the desire to run for president. And since then, I have been working in all those areas, creating networks. You know, in 2014, I tried to vie for the flag of the FDC because I was then feeling that I was even ready in terms of building capacity. You see, one of the reasons why we find it very expensive to run a campaign is because almost everyone you are involving is for hire.
Where are you getting your finances?
No, I want to tell you how I'm going to do this work without necessarily the cash.
All right.
That throughout the 7 years ago when I got this idea, I have been working on identifying friendly forces and individuals who can do out of their goodwill, who can help me do this work. On top of that, this is a campaign, as I say, championing an inclusive youth-led change. This is a campaign of young people. We are putting together our resources. By the way, although we are largely unemployed, but with our meager resources, we can do something. Why should I drive a V8 that consumes 1 million worth of fuel to go for the cabaret meeting rather than board a Jaguar bus?
So we are looking at
cost-cutting initiatives, cost-cutting initiatives in the campaign. If I cannot afford expensive adverts on NTV for my campaign, why don't I consider identifying 100 people that can create 100 WhatsApp groups in these 100 districts, and I channel out these messages on a daily basis? So we are looking at cross-cutting campaign strategies that can help us maneuver.
So, you know,
and besides, I believe,
yes,
the moment you come up and you have a good idea, today I might be struggling, but along the way, Ugandans will realize that this young man is out for a good cause, and they will come on board.
You know, allow me this one, Mr. Director, and also Romeo, as we wrap this up. You know, the cycle of corruption is quite clear. And it starts from that particular point whereby you're campaigning. You said you have friends who are going to boost you. The question is, who are these friends? Because they're the same friends who will seek an allegiance once you're in office for you to compromise certain things for their benefit, to give back to them.
To do the bidding of the donor.
Exactly.
A quick answer. These are friends who are similarly young people who want to run for various offices on the ground. That if I need a campaign, if I need a team in Rukunjiri to pin posters, I will work with you who is already an intending candidate there. Because our team, the team that I work with is largely a team of aspirants.
All right. Okay, Romeo.
Yes, right about now we are going to link to our reporter Stephen Mbide, who is live at the Internal Affairs to tell us more about the e-version of the visa right there. Very good morning once again, Mr. Mbide. What's the